An important part of the roasting of the turkey is to deal with the bones after it's carved. I'm going to try two different ways. Normally I have just put the turkey neck and then the leftover bones in a pot and simmered them. But today I'm going to try both that method and the Instapot method, and then we'll compare the difference between the two. The Instapot, this is a large one, and whichever size you have, you put it on full power or full pressure for 120 minutes. So let's put this together and then we can compare the two. What we're doing is making bone broth. So here is the whole carcass of the turkey, and look, that whole thing fit in the Instapot. And here's the bottom part. We'll put that in to our traditional pan. I'm curious about the extracting of the bone ingredients into the broth, and so we'll put some large bones into both pans. And then we notice we even have the skin. The skin has flavor, so we'll add that too. And then in the Instapot, you only add enough water to cover. So Roger, could you help me pour the broth from the roasting pan? In goes all of the drippings that were left over, because this is our pre-Thanksgiving dinner. Turkey. We have a large enough family that we actually need 2 turkeys for Thanksgiving, and we can do them both at once, but we decided for demonstration purposes that we would cook this turkey early. Would you get a vacuum sealed meat from the fridge? We'll show you what we did with our early turkey. We've vacuum sealed it and put it in the fridge. We're eating dinner in 2 more days, and we will just sous vide warm this up to what temperature?
165.
165 on sous vide. That will be hot and ready, and it'll be a little easier to serve turkey for a large crowd. This is a simplified method because you're likely to be a little tired by the time you get the bones in the pan and covered with water. Notice we've included all the skin and bones and leftovers in both. We're not adding salt. You can add salt to your broth afterwards. And we're not putting any vegetables in. If you wish, you could put onions and carrots and peppercorns, other vegetables you could put in here. But we're talking about simplicity, and you can add other flavors in the soups that you make from this. So today we're only going to turn the stove on for this one and get it simmering. I plan to simmer this for 6 hours. This one's going to take 2 hours, and we'll compare the two after we're through. When they've cooked long enough, then they will be strained, and I like to take the fat off. Some people feel like including the fat in the broth adds to its flavor, but part of me wants to feel no guilt at all when I have fresh turkey bone broth. And we know that cooking the bones for long periods of time releases the collagen from the bones, which is a very good thing for your health, to drink this natural collagen. There are all kinds of soups that you can make with this. I'm excited because this soup I'm making to serve for a group of women in the family that get together for a gift wrapping party every year, and we serve turkey soup at the same time. So I'll get this started. In our region, it's the perfect time to use our outdoor refrigerator. So we will put the hot broth, well covered and well protected, outside on a table I have by my kitchen window. And that's how we will cool down the soup and strain the fat. As I said, some people think that the fat adds flavor. I'm in the habit of getting rid of any fat that I don't need to put in my foods. So I'm going to strain mine off, and I'll show you on camera how easy that is to defat the broth if you have an outdoor refrigerator. Our 6 hours of making bone broth on the stove are over, and believe it or not, here it looks a little pale, but let's move next door to the Instapot. That took 5.5 hours by the time you waited for it to build up steam and then cool down. So I don't see much difference in the time or convenience. It may be a little easier to clean a pot than the Instapot. However, look at the nice color on the Instapot. I will do a taste test on camera and let you know if I can tell any difference in the flavor. So we've seen that there's very little difference in time savings over the Instapot, but there is a color difference. Now I'm going to try the flavor. This is the one that was just boiled on the stove. Mild but very delicious. And here's the Instapot that has a little different color to it. I would say it's very hard to tell the difference, even though the color looks like that would be tastier. They're just as good either way. So I want to show you how I finish off my broth. I take a fine strainer and a container, and I put it in my sink. Let's get this over the way. And then I just start pouring through the strainer to separate the beautiful broth from the bones. Now you might ask, what am I going to do with the bones? And the answer is, I'm going to throw it away. The meat that has been boiled for 6 hours is not really worth eating. All of the flavor has gone into the broth for both the bones and the meat. So what I'm going to do is scoop it out, and this is my discard pan. Well, we're halfway through straining, and I ran off camera to get this little tool. It's some kind of a basket that I got years ago, and it's a little easier to move the bones with this. This will work, but it's cumbersome when you're moving big bones. So we have emptied out the pot of broth, the paler broth, and I'm going to just pour some in here and some in here to measure how much broth we actually have produced from one turkey. So back to the Instapot, I'm now going to lift. It has cooled enough that I can pick it up with my fingers, and that's part of the time, was waiting for it to be cool enough to handle. And I'll do the same thing, only just to be sure, I'll grab the pads now and pour it right into the waiting strainer. I'm now going to use my little spider thing. Let's move this completely out of the way so that you can see a little better. And the spider thing will drain the big bones. I'm not concerned about getting every last ounce of the broth, but you can see how quickly, if you have the right equipment, that you can get rid of all of the no longer needed turkey parts. The neck just fell apart, and it gave us all of its goodness. And now look, we'll just finish measuring and straining the rest of this broth. I'm going to mix them together because remember, I really couldn't tell the difference between the two. So I've got debris here, and I'll just continue emptying it. And this is the same bowl that we used when the turkey was being carved. So I'm just measuring right now up here where you can see. And we still have some more to go, but this is 1 full gallon here. And this is 3 quarts. So 3 3/4 gallons if this fills clear up to the top. So I'm almost through the last little bit. Now, all of the bowls that you've seen me dirty up just now and these strainers all are dishwasher proof. So 1 dishwasher load and my escapade getting the broth will be over. One thing that I'm going to do to show you our outdoor refrigerator, which is, now that it's cold outside, we can just put it on a table. You'll have one more shot of that. And so far we have 3 quarts in these 2 measures. So it's 6.5 quarts. Last night I put, it's now November, it's very cold outside, so I put the hot broth in covered containers outside on a table next to our window. And today it's very congealed. You can see that that is gelled. We have underneath the layer of fat, we have nice, nourishing bone broth. There are hundreds of things you can do with bone broth, so I'm not going to go into that. But I'm just going to say I'm using it for a party right away. This will be a very useful addition to our party. So I'm going around the edges, releasing the fat, and I just want to show you how easily the fat scrapes off. And again, it's optional about removing it. I don't like greasy soup myself, and being counting calories forever, I just naturally want to take that fat off. So you can use a spoon or a knife. I'm using this spatula, and I'm mainly just taking the very top level. There is a little bone broth stuck in there. I'm not worried about that. Look at all the calories that I have removed. And now what we have left is just lovely stuff. Now, usually you have the occasion of dealing with bones when you're tired. So I'm here to tell you, just persevere and do it in steps. If you can get the bones and water to a big pot and just let it simmer for as long as you want, and then strain it and set it in a cold place, then it's a wonderful resource with not a whole lot of energy. You just have to fight through that fatigue. So I am going to pour my 2, well, not exactly pour, dribble my 2 containers of this broth. And my opinion is the crock pot, if you want to use it, fine, but you don't have to, because it turns out the same either way. Oops, I missed a little. So every bit of this delicious broth will be used, and it could be something that you throw away. We did throw away the bones and we threw away the fat, but we're left with quarts and quarts of really delicious stuff. You could pressure can your broth if you wanted to, but I like to just use it up as quickly as I can. You can also freeze it, but I'll tell you, it disappears. to the back corners of the freezer, not to be seen again, and you're wondering why your freezer's filled. So I caution you about being aware about the freezer, and hope you've had a wonderful holiday season. Because I'm not going to use this broth for a few days, I'm just going to keep it in the the Instant Pot liner, and I'm going to put a shower cap right over the top. These are disposable shower caps, and they're wonderful to cover things that don't have lids.